Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where we love to talk about movies. Welcome especially if you're new. If you enjoy talking about movies and staying up to speed on what's in theaters and what's worth checking out, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss a video. Alright, with that, this last week we hit 100 subscribers on the channel. So thank you to each and every one of you that have subscribed. It means a lot that, there are people out there who actually care to hear what I have to say about this. I started this channel just as a means to talk about movies. I see, usually 2 or 3 per week. I don't know anybody else personally who sees that many. So I created the channel just as a way to talk about movies, which is something that I love very much. And so here today to celebrate hitting 100 subscribers, I thought what would be fun is if we go through IMDb's top 100 rated movies, and I'll just talk to which ones I've seen and do a ranking of the ones that I've seen. So with that, let's jump right on in. And technically, we're going to start with number 98 because that is all the 98 and above is 8.3 and above, and then we hit 8.2 for quite a while. And so I think the 8.2 ratings go to like 130. So we'll just we'll cut it off at 98, so not quite technically the 100. And so at 98 we've got North by Northwest. I think I've seen part of this, but for this list, there's things that I may have seen or I think I did, but I don't fully remember. So if I don't remember seeing it and kind of what my thoughts were on it, I'm not going to include it on this list. So I think I may have seen North by Northwest, but I don't really remember it, so I'm not including it here. M, that is a movie that I haven't seen. I don't even think I've heard of it. The Hunt, that's another movie that I haven't seen and haven't heard of. Lawrence of Arabia, I have heard of, but I have not seen. And so there's going to be, I think looking at the list, there's about 30, I think there's 39 of these that I have seen. So I actually haven't seen the majority of the top 100. Next up, we have Citizen Kane. From my understanding, this is like the film to watch in film school if you're going to film school, but I haven't personally seen it. So that one maybe should be on my list of things to see just as a film fan. Capernaum, that is another movie that I haven't heard of and haven't seen. Reservoir Dogs, this is the first one on the list that I've actually seen. So I watched this probably 7 years ago, I want to say. And so I barely remember it. I think I've seen it once. It was not entirely my cup of tea. I forget the specifics, but it was, from what I remember, it was enjoyable enough, but it wasn't all that memorable, and I haven't gone back to it. So what we're gonna do is, as we go through the list, I'm gonna drop them in this slide deck in PowerPoint. So that's gonna be the way that we kind of organize things here, and then I'll just drag and drop them into order. So right now, Reservoir Dogs is number 1 in our list because it's the only one there. I can expect, just based off of what I've shared, my thoughts on it here, it's going to drop quite a bit. So next up, we have Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I have not seen this film. 2001: A Space Odyssey, I have not seen. That's another one that I think I've had recommended, but I just haven't gotten around to. I feel like I've heard that it's very ahead of its time and that sort of thing, but yeah, it's just not one that I've seen. We've got High and Low next. I have not seen that one. And then finally we have a second entry that I can actually put, and that is Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So I grew up on the Star Wars movies. I don't remember seeing Return of the Jedi for the first time, but I remember growing up on it. So it's, I get, when it comes to Star Wars, it's kind of interesting. I get people who, I think the vast majority of people think that they enjoy the original trilogy the most. And I can totally understand that, and I think objectively, I would agree those are better movies. But given that I grew up on those movies and I don't remember seeing them for the first time, I actually personally enjoy the prequels more. I find them just, more entertaining for me personally, because I don't necessarily know if I remember seeing the episode 1 for the first time, but seeing episodes 2 and 3, I do remember, and especially seeing episode 3 in theaters. So like, just that experience that came with those is what enhances my love for the prequels more than the originals. But I still really like the originals. But like in my mind, Darth Vader was always Luke's father. Like I don't remember that, like learning that bit of information and being surprised by it. So it'd be interesting if you could invent a device that could be like selectively delete memories, so you could go back and like watch a movie for the first time. That would be interesting, and I'd love to see the original Star Wars if they had such a device like that. But yeah, Return of the Jedi, it was good. I think it's probably my least favorite of the original trilogy, but it's yeah, it's a movie I grew up on and enjoyed. Idiots is the next one on the list. I haven't heard of that one. Or Three Idiots, excuse me. I haven't heard of that one, and I haven't seen it. Singing in the Rain, I have not seen this film, but I think I've seen a play production of this, and I barely remember that, but it certainly didn't have me interested to go watch a movie of it. Toy Story 3. This was a film that I remember seeing in theaters. Oops, that's not what we want to do. Here we go. We'll get that one over here. And we're going to drop that in at number 1 of these entries. So I really like the Toy Story franchise. Pixar is very good at pulling at your heartstrings. They're a little bit manipulative that way, but I did enjoy what they did with Toy Story 3 and kind of the prison camp sort of aspect to it. And it does go to a kind of dark place in the end, but I appreciate that. I like animated movies that are catered to both kids and adults, as opposed to many of the ones we've gotten so far this year are just kids movies. And yeah, it means that me as an adult at this point in my life, I'm not really going to enjoy it. But the Toy Story movies, they're not like that. So I did really enjoy the third one. Really good animation. And yeah, an interesting storyline. I haven't actually rewatched this one in a while, but yeah. Requiem for a Dream, I have not seen that one. Your Name, I have not seen either. And Good Will Hunting, I have not seen. I think that one's been one that's kind of on my radar. I do really like Matt Damon as an actor. And I don't necessarily care for Robin Williams when he's overly silly, but I do enjoy him in more serious roles, I think. So this is one that I'd be interested to check out, but I just haven't yet. Once Upon a Time in America, I have not seen that one. Avengers Endgame, I have definitely seen. Yeah, so I am a huge MCU fan. If you have been watching my channel at all, you may know that. But this is one of my favorite movies, and I did a rewatch of the entire MCU kind of towards the beginning of COVID in that first couple months when most of us were just shut in. And I did a rewatch and kind of ranked each of the movies. And I think I would say the best MCU movie is Infinity War, but I enjoyed Endgame better. Like, I think Endgame is more of a fan servicey film, and so being a fan, if they're gonna do fan service, which I thought they did really well in that movie, I thoroughly enjoyed that one. So there again, you just had the experience of it, like all the hype leading up to it, having had basically what was the equivalent of a like normally you get you know, the MCU at that point in time felt like a season of TV, but each episode, instead of being just a regular TV episode, was a full movie. And we haven't gotten that with anything else, but it definitely felt like a season finale for the MCU, and I thought they knocked that one out of the park. So I think that this one, like, it's definitely top of the ones we have in there right now, but even for the MCU, I think Avengers Endgame is my favorite as far as how enjoyable it is to watch and rewatch. Next up, we have Princess Mononoke. I saw this one a couple years ago, and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah, it was an interesting enough film. I watched it with the English dub, and I thought it had a interesting story, but I haven't like rewatched it, and I haven't had necessarily a desire to rewatch it, but I can see why a lot of people really like the film. So that one, I have to think where that goes. I'm going to, I think that goes below Star Wars. I think Star Wars is still better. So yeah, this is I'm ranking these not by what I think is the best movie, because we have a pretty objective list in front of us. So this is on the right hand side. We have this is my personal list of which ones I enjoy the most and kind of ordering them that way. So, yeah, it's just my list. So, I mean, you're certainly welcome to disagree. That's the beauty of film, and this is something that'll probably change over time. Like just depending on what mood I am in a given day, I might look more fondly on one film than the next. But yeah, that's again another interesting thing when it comes to film. Next up, we have Inglourious Bastards. This is a movie by Quentin Tarantino, and it's one of his films that I've seen. I enjoy it probably the most, or close to the most. It's up there, and yeah, it's just a fun movie. It's Quentin Tarantino, so you're gonna get your violence and everything like that. But I thought it was a fun film though. At the end of the day. I'm not sure. I have to think where that's gonna go, though. I think it's definitely above Reservoir Dogs. Do I like it better? I think I like it better than Princess Mononoke. Does it go higher than this on the list? I think so. Return of the Jedi was fun, but it wasn't my favorite Star Wars film. So I think it's gonna go there. I don't think it's higher than Toy Story 3. Next up, we have The Boat. I haven't heard of that one. I haven't seen it. And then we've got Coco. And Coco is it's another Pixar film. I know a lot of people absolutely love Coco. I did not really care for this film. Maybe it was because I watched like half of it and then had to set it down, and then I continued the second half either later in the day or the next day. But it wasn't one, surprisingly enough, I think, for like, given that I do love music and that one focuses a lot on music, I think it was surprising that I didn't like the movie more. But I think part of that is, while I do really like music, I don't necessarily like all styles of music equally. And the kind of the mariachi style of music is not one that I'm particularly fond of. I appreciate it as music, but it's certainly not a go-to. And I think maybe that's why I didn't care for this film as much. It's one that I've seen once and I haven't had an interest to revisit. But I get why a lot of people do like it. I would still put that above Reservoir Dogs, mainly because, yeah, at this point I don't, like, I remember seeing Reservoir Dogs, but I don't remember too much of it. So I don't even know. Well, yeah, I do remember seeing it, and it didn't really leave an impact, so it's going to be pretty much close to the bottom of this list, I think, unless we come across a movie that I just didn't like. Next up, we have Toy Story. This is one, again, it's one that I grew up on. I don't remember seeing Toy Story for the first time, but it was one of the ones that I liked, although I think I liked Toy Story 2 better, and that was mainly, like, as a kid, I remember, like, the scene in Sid's, is it Sid? The neighbor, anyway. I think it's Sid. The scene in his room where you got all like the disfigured toys coming out. That still creeped me out. Like, it's a kind of creepy scene, especially as a kid. And so that part wasn't something I was necessarily fond of. But I did like Toy Story. I do like the brand. But that one is probably my least favorite of the 3 Toy Stories. I'd probably put that about there. I'm trying to think if it's better than Return of the Jedi. Probably not. It's roughly about there. I'm not going to overthink this list. We'll be here all day if I kind of nitpick some of these. But yeah, next up we have Braveheart. This is one that I have seen. I hadn't seen it growing up, and I think this was probably 6 years ago now, and I had a friend who really loved Braveheart. He's like, oh, you haven't seen Braveheart? You got to see Braveheart. And I think my stance was, well, I'm like, and then equally, I'm like, you haven't seen Harry Potter? You got to see Harry Potter. And so he said he'd watch Harry Potter, and I said I'd watch Braveheart. And I believe we both kept our end of the bargain. I don't think he watched necessarily, like, I don't think the Harry Potter that he watched hooked him. And I think it was the first one. It might have been the second one. But yeah, I'm not sure if he's seen the rest of them. But I watched Braveheart as a result of that, and I remember being thoroughly unimpressed. Like, I think it was a good film from what I remember, but like growing up on Lord of the Rings, I'm like this does not hold anything to Lord of the Rings. Certainly not. And so I think part of that was maybe I was trying to be a little bit overly critical because my friend was like hyping it up so much. But that, yeah, it just didn't leave an impression on me. I've seen it the one time and I haven't revisited it. So I'll put that above Coco, but below all the others. Next up, we have Amadeus. I've heard of this film. I think I've seen parts of it, but I haven't actually watched it. Joker, that is a film that I really enjoy. That was one of my favorites of 2019, and it's hard because it's a fairly depressing film. Like, there isn't a character in there that you like want to root for that's a hero. Like, everyone at best is like kind of middle of the road, and there's a lot of people that aren't very good people in it. So like mentally that takes a toll on you to sit through a whole movie and not have somebody to kind of root for. But given that, it was still a really interesting film, and I really liked the take that they did on the Joker. It's amazing how many different takes we have of this character, where it's still definitively the Joker, but also so unique from the other takes. And there aren't many characters that they've been able to do that with over the years. So that one coming in, that is going to be pretty high on the list. I copy it down at the bottom to begin, but I'm going to put that above Toy Story 3. I really liked Joker. It was very good. Old Boy, I haven't heard of, haven't seen. Dark Knight Rises, this is a film that I actually saw 3 times in theaters. And yeah, I think I saw it opening night. That might be the only midnight premiere that I've ever gone to. So I was 2012, so I would have been 16 at the time. So I was just at the age where I was like old enough to start going to midnight showings, and then they only had midnight showings for a few years after that, I think. And now they don't do midnight showings anymore. It's like things released even as early as like 3 p.m. the day before, but nobody does a midnight thing. So that has a special place in my heart for going to see it at a midnight premiere. I went with my brother, so that was a great experience. We then saw it the following day, that Saturday, because we had like nothing else to do, and my brother's friend wanted to go see it. And then I think I saw it a couple weeks later with my other brother. And yeah, this was not as good as The Dark Knight in my opinion, but it was still. So I think at the time I was kind of let down because I was like, oh, this is the third one. It's got to be better than the Joker, it's got to be better than The Dark Knight. Had super hyped going in, and it didn't live up to that. So I was like more disappointed. But watching it since then, I do really like the film. I think the music's good. The story is interesting. It's more about Gotham City than it is about Batman, which I kind of like. I mean, once you get to like your third movie in the series, I like how each of the Dark Knight trilogy movies feel kind of unique and distinct. It doesn't feel like they just kind of rinsed and repeated for each of those. But yeah, I do. That is one of my favorite trilogies though of all time. And while The Dark Knight Rises is kind of my least favorite in there, it's still a very good film. I think I'm gonna put that above Toy Story 3, but below Joker. Next up, we got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I absolutely love this film. I saw it in theaters with a couple of my friends, and I just love the art style. The story had a lot of heart. The characters were interesting. And yeah, it's one that I can't recommend enough. It won Best Animated Picture at the Oscars that year. I'm glad we're getting a sequel because it didn't make the most money at the box office. I'm hoping people will check out the sequel. Actually, 2 of them that we've got. It's a 2-parter. And yeah, where to put this? It's at least up here. Do I like it better than Joker? I think so. Yeah. That one, it's a lot of fun. Joker's a little too depressing between the two. But yeah, Doctor Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I haven't heard of that film. American Beauty I've heard of. I haven't seen. I've listened to the music though. It's done by Thomas Newman, and I really like his music, including the music for that one. Aliens, that is one that I think I might have seen or I've seen part of at one point growing up at like on TV at a hotel or something like that, but I really don't remember it, so I'm not going to include it on my list here. Avengers Infinity War. I've already kind of spoken to this one a little bit when I was talking about Avengers Endgame, but this one was, yeah, I remember when this came out and how the movie ends. I like spoilers for any of these. I think the newest movie on here is Top Gun Maverick. That's the only one from this year. But at this point, yeah, I'm not really guarding myself for spoilers. I'm gonna assume that you've seen most of these. I'm not gonna try to spoil things, but I'm gonna talk about it, and that means talking to certain things. So the fact that Avengers Infinity War is a tragedy, I absolutely love that aspect of the film. We don't get enough films where the heroes lose, and when we get them and they're done right, I really appreciate it. Even though I don't want to see that in every film, I like seeing them some of the times because it means that not every film is going to have a happy ending. So I also really liked kind of the different storylines that they had going on. I really liked Thor in this movie. Like Thor's entrance in Wakanda is just cheerworthy every time, gets me emotional. It's great. So again, after like so many movies prepping this, where this was sort of part one of a season finale, with Avengers Endgame being the part two of that. I mean, granted, they did have a couple movies in between there, but that's what these movies felt like at the time. This was just so much fun to go to, and easily one of my favorite films of all time. I think it's my second favorite MCU film, and I think objectively the best MCU film. Continuing up the list, Witness for the Prosecution, haven't heard of, haven't seen. The Great Dictator, haven't heard of, haven't seen. The Shining, I've heard of. I have not seen it. I do believe I have it in 4K on the shelf behind me. I just haven't gotten around to seeing it, but I should do that at some point, I think. Paths of Glory, I have not heard of, haven't seen. Sunset Boulevard, haven't seen. The Lives of Others, haven't seen. Wally, I have seen. I did not see this one in theaters, but I saw it when it came out. And this was a charming film. I thought it was kind of a step down from, like, it's not my favorite Pixar film, and it's certainly been a while since I've seen it, but I did enjoy it. And I think it's kind of middle of the pack for Pixar films. But I think it's kind of interesting. There's kind of like two halves to the movie where you've got like, well, it's the first part where you're on Earth still, and that feels more like a short, and then we go into space, and it kind of takes on a new feel to the rest of the movie. Actually, that kind of reminds me a lot of how Lightyear plays out, where like I think the first act was what was most interesting, and then they wanted to make a movie out of that, and then they tacked on a couple acts, and it didn't necessarily live up to the first act, but still an enjoyable film, especially for given how little dialogue there is. It's impressive how enjoyable it is. But I would put that, I'll probably put that at below Princess Mononoke. Django Unchained. This is a film that I'm trying to remember where or how I first saw this, but it's another Quentin Tarantino film. He's got several on this top 100 list. Yeah, so he makes movies that people like. He's not necessarily my favorite filmmaker, but I do appreciate several pieces of his work. Some others not so much. But Django Unchained, I think, is up there for the Quentin Tarantino movies that I like actually quite a bit. But yeah, I think I've only seen it the once though. I remember enjoying it, but I don't remember it enough to really talk to it more than that. I think I'm gonna put it below Inglourious Basterds. Is that better than Star Wars? I don't. I've only seen it the once, so like I think if I liked it better, I'd put it. Yeah, we're gonna put it further down, just by the fact that if I haven't rewatched it, it means that I didn't care for it as much. Next up, we have Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is one that I grew up on as well and absolutely love. The music is super thematic and great. John Williams did such a phenomenal job with the score for this. And then, yeah, Harrison Ford's just a lot of fun in this role. So this is just such a fun adventure film. I don't think many movies have been able to recapture the magic that this one had. I know several try, but they haven't quite gotten there. I'm gonna put this. This is difficult. It's at least up there. I think it's above that. And would I rather watch Toy Story or Indiana Jones? I think I'm gonna put it above that. Yeah, somewhere up there. Again, I'm not gonna nitpick it. It's upper tier. Apocalypse Now, I haven't seen. Memento, I have seen. There again, I think I've only seen it once. I remember it being kind of interesting. Like you've got the gimmick with it, and yeah, but it didn't leave a huge impact on me at this point. I think it's probably been like a decade since I saw it. So that one's gonna. Oops, that's not what I wanted to copy. That one's gonna go on the list, but why is it not copying? There we go. Okay, that one's close to the bottom, mainly again because it didn't leave a huge impression on me. Cinema Paradiso, haven't heard of, haven't seen. City Lights, haven't seen. Alien, I have seen. I did not care for this movie all that much. I appreciate like the work that went into it. I'm sure, especially getting like a space sort of movie, but it was. I'm not huge on horror, and I would like this is definitely in that vein, and yeah, it just kind of creeped me out, and it's not one that I enjoyed. That one's gonna go at the bottom of our list for now. Yeah. Next up, we've got Rear Window. Haven't seen that one. Top Gun Maverick, I have seen. I've got a review for this on my channel if you want my full thoughts. This is one of my favorite films of the year. I think it's at number 3 right now. But this is such a good movie. It had a very good script, in my opinion, very good story, and it was just shot so beautifully. Like they made this movie right, and it has certainly paid off. Tom Cruise's biggest movie of his career at the box office. It's still going strong, and yeah, this was an enjoyable film. I saw it twice this year, so that is going to come in here. Where is it going to go? I think it's at least above Inglourious Bastards. Whew. I think I put that above Indiana Jones, and I'm going to put it above Dark Knight Rises. I think that's about where it goes. Yeah. Next up, we got Once Upon a Time in the West, haven't seen. Modern Times, haven't seen. Grave of the Fireflies, haven't seen. Harakiri, haven't heard of, haven't seen. Intouchables, haven't seen. Whiplash, I have seen that one. This was a good film. It was, yeah, very interesting story. I thought the acting was really well done, but J.K. Simmons plays a character that reminds me of somebody that I know in real life that, yeah, watching this film was slightly, like, yeah, it was digging up some things that I didn't, yeah, so he plays a character of somebody that's very similar to somebody I know that I don't really get along with, and yeah, that just made me kind of think about those sort of things, and I didn't enjoy thinking about that as much, so I think, yeah, the movie is very well done, but my personal enjoyment of it is kind of down there. So I'm going to put that, though. Still, I'd put it above Braveheart, but kind of lower on my list. Casablanca, haven't seen. The Prestige, I have seen this one. This is, in fact, in my top 10 movies of all time. So it is I think it's the only non-franchise movie in my top 10 movies of all time. I absolutely love this film. I love the way that the story is told out of order. You kind of got to piece it together. And this is one I'm not going to go into spoilers. Yeah, if you haven't seen this film, I can't recommend it enough. And if you haven't seen it and can see it without getting it spoiled, all the better. I'd say just don't know anything going into it. But I really liked all the, like, it has a great cast between Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale, Scarlett Johansson, and Michael Caine. Those are some of my favorite actors. And then it's one of my favorite directors in Christopher Nolan. And then it's about magicians, which I absolutely love magic as well. So it's a really, really well done film. Story is incredibly interesting, and yeah, I absolutely love it. I can't talk about this movie. I can't talk it up enough, which I probably shouldn't do if you haven't seen it. But if you have seen it, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. Although not everyone loves it as much as I do. I do recognize that. Sorry, it does not go top of the list. It is 3. I like the Avengers movies better, just because there's more that goes into those. Having the payoff of 20 plus movies in those, and the culmination of all that, those were experiences that I will cherish and can't find in too many other places. So I didn't see The Prestige in theaters. I saw it at home, And yeah, while I really, really like it, it does not come with that experience. That is another movie that if you could selectively delete memories, I would love to do that for that film and go back and rewatch it for the first time. Because, yeah, going in and not knowing anything it's such a good film. The Usual Suspects, haven't seen that one. The Departed, that one I have seen. I did really like The Departed. It's I've also seen I forget. Yeah, I forget if it's like a Chinese or Japanese. So I apologize for my ignorance there. But there's an original of this film done in Chinese or Japanese. I think it's Chinese. That this one like takes 100% from. Like its main story is copy and paste. But this one obviously is still, its own thing. It's makes it, instead of being in China, it's in Boston with the Irish mob, I believe, and that sort of thing. So it's still its own film from that other one, but I had seen the other one first, so I kind of knew the story, which made me like I wish I could go into this one again not knowing anything about it. But I really like the film. It's been a while since I watched it, but it's always one that I'm like, man, it would be nice to just sit down and watch The Departed again, because that was a good film. But this is another good story, great acting. It's up there. I think it's better than Glorious Bastards. I would say better than Toy Story 3. Yeah, it's probably up there. About there. American History X, I have not seen it. Gladiator, I have seen. That's a good movie, solid movie. It's not necessarily like my favorite, but it's enjoyable. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember growing up on it and thinking it was a pretty good film. Yeah, where is that gonna go? It's kind of in this category, I think. Yeah. We'll put it there, maybe above Inglourious Bastards. The Lion King, that is a Disney movie that I saw growing up, but it wasn't like my favorite, and it wasn't one that we watched a ton. So I enjoy it. I enjoy the music for the most part, but it's not one of my favorite Disney films. I get why a lot of people absolutely love it, but yeah, it's I'm probably gonna put that. Probably there. I think I like those movies better. So it's kind of lower on my list. Parasite. This was another thoroughly depressing film that I had like no idea. Like watching it and then like trying to explain it to somebody afterwards. They're like, "Oh, haven't seen any new movies lately?" I'm like, "Yeah, I saw Parasite." "Oh, what's that one about?" I can't even start to explain what this one's about. You just kind of have to watch it. But yeah, I can see why it won Best Picture, and it's not one that I'm necessarily going to go revisit, but I appreciated the experience that it gave me on the single watch that I had. So that one, I think it's at least above Whiplash. But yeah, it's a good film, but not one that I particularly enjoyed. I think we'll leave it there. Leon, The Professional, haven't seen. The Pianist, I haven't seen. Psycho, I haven't seen. Spirited Away, I have seen. This one, I know. I think this is like one of the most popular animated films, or like most money making. I think up until I think what it was up until the Demon Slayer movie that came out a couple years ago, Spirited Away had made like the most money for any animated film in Japan in theaters, and then Demon Slayer broke that record. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. So I know this is a very popular film. I can see why. I just didn't personally care for it a whole lot. I thought it was good, but yeah, not one that I'm itching to get back to. I would put that probably there. Back to the Future. This one was a lot of fun. It's been a long time since I saw it, and it's one that like I don't remember seeing for the first time. It's another one that I kind of grew up on, but not as much as like Indiana Jones, and Star Wars. Like I think we had like the VHSs of those growing up, but I don't think we had that of Back to the Future. So, but it's a fun film. I definitely see why it's as popular as it was. It's certainly not, or it's certainly the best of the trilogy. But yeah, I'd probably put that there. It's a fun film. But it's been a while since I've seen it, so I think if I liked it better, I would have watched it more recently, and it'd be higher on this list. Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I have not seen. I have it. It's on the shelf behind me, but I haven't seen it. Star Wars, the original. This is one that, yeah, again, I grew up on. I like this one, I think, better than Episode 6. I think I've already kind of talked to Star Wars in general, but obviously very groundbreaking for its time. But growing up on it, that's kind of lost on you. But it probably goes about there. I think the original, in my opinion, while it's very groundbreaking, it seems pretty straightforward for the plot, and yeah, it's not the most fun for me to revisit. I think parts of it are kind of boring a little bit. Don't be too mean in the comments, but I like it. It's just I find the prequels more enjoyable. So yeah, Interstellar. This is a movie. I wish I'd seen this in theaters, especially in IMAX, but I didn't see it until home release. But it's a film that I really liked. It came out, I think, while I was in college doing like physics freshman year. So I was like, yeah, the fact that it's talking about like relativity and that sort of thing was very. Oh no, that would have come out. I think I saw it around that time. I think it was out in theaters before I was at that point in college. But the thoughts that it kind of made me think, and like the relativity of like the faster you travel, the slower time passes for you, the faster time passes for other people, and the fact that, you know, he leaves Earth and comes back and his daughter's an old woman. Like, just thinking about that and kind of the physics of it and going down that rabbit hole was a really interesting experience. I know like the black hole thing towards the end of the film doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you just kind of got to go with it and have fun. So it's really nice looking film. I liked a lot of stuff with it, but not necessarily my favorite Christopher Nolan film. Where does that go? I think it goes above Star Wars. Yeah, it's about there. It's kind of middle of the pack of these, what we got going. The Green Mile, I've not seen. Life is Beautiful, I haven't seen. Saving Private Ryan, I have not. I think I've seen part of it, but I don't remember seeing the whole thing, so I'm not going to include it on my list. I think that's, of the ones we've gone through so far, that's up there of the ones that I haven't seen, but I would like to. Like, I think that's pretty close to the top of my list. City of God, I haven't seen. Silence of the Lambs, I haven't seen, but I think a fun trivia fact that I think I recently heard was that I think it's one of like 3 movies to win Best Director, Best Writer, and Best Actor, I think. Or maybe it's Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Actress. I think it's the former of those two, but I think there's only like 3 movies that have ever done it. So that tells me that this is a pretty good film, but I just haven't seen it. It's a Wonderful Life. That one I have seen. It's a Christmas movie that I never really cared for growing up, but it was one that people always played, and I haven't seen it in a long time. I'd be curious if I went back to watch it again, if I would like it more, but it's down there on my list. It's not very high up. But I think it's, objectively, I think it's a good film. It's just pretty old at this point, and I'm less inclined to like older movies. I like things that look nice, especially in 4K with nice colors. And I know that's only part of what, like, film is more than just story and acting and characters. If that's all it was, then it would be a play or an audiobook or something like that. But film has the added benefit of being a visual medium. And so when you compare movies these days, like Top Gun Maverick, to It's a Wonderful Life, which is black and white, if I remember correctly, nothing against it. Like, that's just what it was for its time. But me, living in the present day, I'm not as inclined to like things that visually don't look as nice. Because I think, like, yeah, again, that's not the main point of film, but it's still a crucial aspect that changes my enjoyment of a film. Seven Samurai, I have not seen. Seven, I have not seen either, but it's on I'd say that's another one that's kind of up there on this list of things that I haven't seen that I think I should probably see. What has gotten, I think the Batman got comparisons to Seven, if I remember correctly, so that kind of got me a bit more interested to see it. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I haven't seen. Goodfellas, I haven't seen. The Matrix, I have seen. I have seen this twice. I think the first time I saw it, I was in the mindset of, oh, this movie is super hyped up. I'm going to watch it and basically refuse to like it. So I picked it apart as much as I could, and I didn't like it. I've rewatched it since then, and I've seen all the other Matrix movies as well since then. I think it's the best Matrix movie, but I still don't care for it as much, I think, as everybody else. But there again, I think it's like watching it years after it released as opposed to watching it when it released. I'm sure it's a very different experience. Like if you saw that in theaters, it was probably a lot better for its time than what it is now. So some movies just don't age as well as others. But yeah, I'd put that about here, I think. It does have some interesting concepts, though. I do appreciate the things that it goes into with, like, the digital world and simulations and stuff like that. As a software engineer, kind of movies that touch on things like that I find interesting. So, yeah. Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. I think this is the best of the original trilogy. I do really enjoy it. Probably not as much as any of the prequels, again, but yeah, it's hard. Like when I think about like my enjoyment of any of these films, like I just grew up on these, so I've seen them so many times. So a lot of like my thought process with this is like, oh, which one of these, of the ones on this list, which one would I like here and now? Which one would I sit down and watch more? I think it would go above that. And well, so there's the what would I watch here and now, but like if I could only take one, which one would I take? That's a different question. With that kind of in mind, I would actually bump this probably up to there. I might have to bump some of these. Nah, I mean, yeah. Those are two separate things, and like I said, like this is a continuously evolving list, and there's different points of view. Like if it was Desert Island and you could only take 10, which ones would you take? That's a different question than like which one do I want to watch right here and now. But yeah, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. I have seen this one many times, but this is Lord of the Rings is, yeah, my favorite movie of all time. The trilogy we'll just treat as one. But Two Towers is my least favorite of the three, but still really good. I saw it in theaters once, I believe. And, yeah, up there. Is Two Towers better than Avengers? I don't think Two Towers is better than Avengers, but it's up there. I think the other two will be. But we'll get to those. We'll see. Next up we have Inception. This was a lot of fun. I remember this coming out. It was super hype. Like Christopher Nolan's next big thing. Looked super cool from the trailers. And while I don't know if the logic holds together entirely throughout the film, I don't know. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't really care. It's a lot of fun. It makes sense for the most part. I could probably pick it apart and find some issues with it. But I do really like it. But that came out the same summer as Toy Story 3. I remember that. It was a lot of fun. I'm probably going to put it there. It's up there. It's a pretty good film. Fight Club, I haven't seen. Forrest Gump, I haven't seen. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I have seen. It's been a long time. I don't really remember it that much. Again, it's kind of an older film. I remember kind of the ending, but I don't remember much of anything else. Kind of a slower film. I'd probably put it down there. It's just, again, it's been a while since I've seen it. I know I've seen it. I know it was decent. But yeah. Before we get too ahead of ourselves, scrolling up. Next up we have Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah. My family grew up on Lord of the Rings. We absolutely love the films. We watched these things so many times growing up. I did not see this one in theaters, but I saw it, I think, when it came out on VHS at home. That would have been 2002, I think, at that point, because it released in theaters in 2001. So I was 6 when I watched this movie for the first time. And I remember the kids at school were, like, kind of jealous that my parents let me see this, because I think a lot of the parents weren't letting their 6-year-olds watch Lord of the Rings. I still don't really know how I was allowed to watch it, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's, yeah, while it is PG-13, it's like fantasy violence, which is a bit different than other types of violence. So I don't think watching it at a young age had a negative impact on me. I know some people have different takes on, whether kids should be exposed to violence in movies and media, but we won't get into all that political discussion here. It is one of my favorite movies, though. I just like the feel of the first one. It's not quite as big as 2 and 3, but it's, it was, I don't know. Yeah, I watched it several times. Only watch the extended edition these days. The theatrical cut just doesn't compare. Seen all the appendices, all the behind the scenes, probably multiple times at this point. Definitely at least once all the way through. But yeah, Lord of the Rings is going to be hard for any movie to beat out as being like my top movie ever. Pulp Fiction, I have not seen. Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. This is, I think, the best Lord of the Rings film. I think if anything, the Oscars are proof of that. Winning, sweeping on all its nominations, tied for the most wins of any film ever, and yeah, just all around great cast, great production value, great story. I hope there's a better movie out there that has yet to be made, and I will enjoy it someday. But again, it goes back to the experience of it. I remember, we were huge into Lord of the Rings, and 1 and 2 had come out, and I remember seeing this opening day in the theater, and lots of people from school were there, and then I saw it again a few weeks later with my cousin, and I think our whole family went. And then I saw it again a couple months later on my birthday, and that's one I've seen in theaters 3 times. There again, only watch the extended edition these days. I know that goes 4.5 hours long, but hey, it's a great film, and I absolutely love it. Schindler's List, I have not seen. I should probably see that film. 12 Angry Men, I have not seen. The Godfather Part 2, I have not seen. Dark Knight, I have seen. This is one of my favorite films ever. I remember when this came out, my dad, so it got rated PG-13, but my dad saw it, and he didn't want me watching it until I was 18. Again, I don't know. I think my parents were kind of weird. They're a little inconsistent with what they let me watch and what they didn't let me watch. But I think my dad didn't like he wanted me to be a little bit older to watch the film, which had the Joker, who's just a psychopath and has no, moral drive of any sort. I still really don't get that, looking back. He did eventually... So I think I was 12 when it released. And I was just I'd seen Batman Begins, so I assumed I was going to be able to see that, but no, I wasn't. And I think I didn't have to wait till I was 18. I think I was 15 when I did end up seeing it, and yeah, absolutely loved it. Heath Ledger, he does such a good job with his character, and so glad that, it's unfortunate he's no longer here with us, but I'm glad that we have, that's part of the beauty of art is, people can live on through that, and that is something he'll be remembered for a very long time. So that's up there. I think I like that. I think it's about there. I think I like it better than The Prestige, not quite as much as Lord of the Rings, but Dark Knight Trilogy is one of my favorite series of all time. The Godfather, I have not seen. So The Godfather Trilogy is on my list of things to watch. I picked up the Blu-ray about a year ago, I think, but I haven't gotten around to seeing it. And then they just announced the release of the Steelbook 4K edition, and that's going to come out in a couple months. So at this point, I'm waiting for that Steelbook to come out, and I want to watch it in 4K. I understand the third one's not as good, but yeah, my understanding is I really have to see The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. I don't know that I can legitimately call myself a film fan without having seen those. So I think those two are on the top of my list of the ones that I haven't seen of this top 100. And then last up we have Shawshank Redemption. This movie I did really, really like. I think that was close to being in my top 10 of all time. It didn't quite make it in, though. I definitely like some other movies better. But this was... Yeah, I just love this film. You've got the Thomas Newman soundtrack, which gives it just such a certain feel. And then the story and the ending is, watching it and not knowing what was going to happen is such a fun experience. So This is one that I like a lot. It's up there with one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's about right there on this list. So there we have it, though. We got through the top 100 movies, and yeah, to celebrate 100 subscribers, figured it would be kind of thematic to do the top 100 movies on IMDb. So I think this is probably the best source just to go off of collective rating. I know there's plenty of lists out there for the top 100 movies ever, but I figured this was kind of the best reference points. And it shows me that there's a lot of good stuff out there that I haven't seen yet. Like I said, I've only seen 37 or 39 of the top 100. That isn't even a majority. So I'll have to start putting some of these on my list. I am also currently working through all of like the best picture winners from every year that I've like since I've been born. So those are kind of two of the driving factors of like watching stuff that is not brand new that I haven't seen. But if you've if you maybe have like a top 10, or if you want to share your top 100, certainly go ahead in the comments below, even if it's just a top few. I'd love to hear which of these movies are your favorite. Which movies do you think should be on this list but aren't? Like, which ones are in your top 10 and not here? I think for me, I don't know if it should be in the top 100, but like I think the Winter Soldier, Captain America the Winter Soldier, is one of my favorite films, and I think that deserves to be a lot higher and probably should be in the top 100 based off of my enjoyment of it. I think other things, I would say How to Train Your Dragon is better than Toy Story, so I think that should be on the list, this top 100 list, if Toy Story is. And yeah, those are a couple that come to mind, but I'll have to do like a top 10 or something list of like my all-time top 10 at some point. But here today we did the top 100. If you if you have any suggestions though for movies on this list, like which ones should I be checking out first, because this is still to complete this list, I got 61 movies to go yet, which is quite a few. So if you got any suggestions of ones that you particularly loved, especially if there's ones on here that I haven't seen that's like your favorite movie of all time, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Again, I can't promise that I'll watch a given movie based off of a suggestion, but I certainly appreciate the suggestions, and usually I'll add them to my list to kind of eventually check out. But there's just so much content and you can't keep up with everything. But that said, again, I like getting suggestions because it does help me kind of shape my backlog of movies that I need to get through. So yeah, if you enjoyed this this kind of tier list and ranking of the top 100 on IMDb, be sure to like and subscribe. I mostly do reviews, but yeah, wanted to do something a little bit different. And yeah, this was fun. But yeah, otherwise, thanks for watching, and we will catch you in the next video.